Good afternoon or good evening. Thanks for coming down. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge all those in attendance, including those members from the media, fellow police officers that have come down, Mr Robert Muldoon, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and members of the public themselves. Thank you for coming down. We called this press conference today to I guess, share some concerns that we've got in the city at the moment, particularly around gun crime and drug crime in Victoria. We do so in the hope that this increased transparency from the police force is reciprocated in kind by those who are charged and those who we are protecting. So we'll start off having a bit of a talk about guns. Last night alone, officers were subjected to multiple instances of gun violence by offenders, and firearms prohibition orders were issued. We also currently have 3 ongoing investigations into 3 separate events where a fully automatic weapon was used to shoot at police and civilians. Between the 14th of April and the 20th of April, so 6 days, police have issued 9 firearm prohibition orders, and 5 of those have been related to automatic weaponry or shotguns. At present, there are approximately 92 recorded firearm prohibition orders issued by police. When you compare that to the number of recorded prohibition orders with the amount of gun violence exerted by offenders, it's pretty clear, it's blatantly clear that police have been quite reserved in their issuing of firearm prohibition orders. For those that are unaware the severity of firearm prohibition orders, the order itself results in the offender's inability to purchase firearms using conventional methods, including from gun stores, as well as known black market locations. So if civilians do find themselves with a firearms prohibition order, they are unable to purchase weapons from those locations. We feel that those orders are significant, so therefore are reserved for only the most violent acts, the most violent attacks on people, and also people that have the most dangerous weapons in the city, particularly around automatic weapons and where it involves shooting of police officers. As the Director of Public Prosecutions will talk about after myself, the current legislation in place in Victoria means that police can use their discretion to issue firearm prohibition orders in pretty much all circumstances to protect the public. I can't stress enough, the state of Victoria, both the government and the police force, do not tolerate excessive gun crime, and I can assure members of the public that every available resource is and will continue to be dedicated to neutralising the gun trade in Victoria, as well as seizing weapons from those who act irresponsibly with them. To give you a bit of an idea of the resources that the police are dedicating and the achievements of our officers that our officers have made so far, I'm just going to provide you with some numbers around street values and seizures that we've obtained recently. So at present, within Victoria Police, for those that are aware, we have a criminal investigation unit that focuses on investigating serious, major criminal activity through the whole state. In addition, we also have a task force, Task Force Australia. A group of highly skilled officers belong to that task force who investigate organised crime within the city and execute targeted operations with the end goal of disrupting organised criminal groups and also their methods of income. Collectively, between the task force and the criminal investigation unit, we've seized $19,104,569 worth of firearms and drugs that were previously in the possession of organised criminal groups within the state of Victoria. In addition to this, a well-known criminal offender has recently received a sentence of life imprisonment by the High Court of Australia for weapons trafficking, attempted murder, kidnapping, and terrorism. Due to ongoing suppression and security, the individual's name will not be released. However, he has received a life sentence in this city. The seizure amount, that $19 million, is for the month of April only. We are only 20 days into the month of April, and we've already confiscated over $19 million worth of weapons, drugs, and other proceeds of crime. As such, we won't be relenting on the pressure being exerted upon criminal groups and violent offenders in the city. Victoria Police, from today onwards, will be conducting a highly visible operation targeting the appropriate ownership of firearms in the state of Victoria. As a firearm owner in Victoria, you must meet certain obligations under the Firearms Act of 1996. These obligations include appropriate storage of firearms and submitting to compliance checks by police. Officers over the coming days and possibly weeks will be completing compliance checks on members of the public who own a firearms license. You'll be required to show police where your firearms are stored and in what manner. Failure to comply with appropriate storage and appropriate license classes will result in the revoke of your firearms license. The operation aims to seize weapons from irresponsible owners, thus ensuring that responsible gun owners are not punished because of the actions by a small group of individuals. Please also keep in mind that should you own a firearms license and refuse a compliance check, your license will be immediately revoked. Moving on to drugs and drug crime. Drug manufacturing has increased recently in the state of Victoria. Manufacturers are becoming more emboldened with population increases. This week alone, Victoria Police has apprehended a group of individuals who were manufacturing methamphetamine behind Yellow Jack in plain view of the main road of Mount Thomas. This week alone, there have been approximately 9 seizures of drugs at an amount of 100 bags or more, each bag being 1 gram. In terms of street value, that's around $900,000 worth of drugs. Drugs are also used as a method of income for organised criminal groups to fund their activities and purchase the illegal weaponry that has been plaguing our streets. A recent search warrant executed by the Criminal Investigation Unit resulted in the seizure of $2.3 million worth of methamphetamine alone. It isn't necessary for me to explain the negative impacts that drug have on our society. Drug obviously causes death, serious injury, and costs the health sector and corrective services $1 million each year. These drugs are primarily peddled by criminal organisations who have no concern or regard for the impact that their methods have on our communities. This is the reason why police are regularly patrolling throughout the state of Victoria, searching for manufacturing locations. A large number of existing locations for production are known by police, and regular observation is conducted as part of ongoing investigations. We also have Pole Air, the police helicopter, which is regularly tasked with reconnaissance missions around Victoria, looking for activity at known locations, as well as indications of manufacturing, specifically methamphetamine manufacturing. A big thank you to our local community for their reports into drug manufacturing and drug sales. These reports that we get sent are of huge importance to us, and they've led to multiple seizures as well as successful prosecutions. So I do urge the public to continue to inform the police, either in person at a station, via message, via the phone, of any drug manufacturing that you do see around the state of Victoria. And rest assured that our resources dedicated to the drug crime will remain and the seizures will continue to occur. Offenders should also be put on notice that should you be manufacturing drugs in Victoria, it's only a matter of time before police catch you. In the interest of being open with the public, I'd also like to give a very quick snapshot of other operations currently within Victoria Police. Currently, the General Duties Division and our training team are working with 9 recruits with the goal of completing their training and progressing these recruits into their probationary constable period. There are currently 7 approved applications awaiting the previous batch of recruits to complete their training, and we have a further 15 applicants in the process of being reviewed, with countless more awaiting review. With the increase in size of people in the city, our goal is to increase our police presence, with the ultimate goal of a full city being around 40 police officers on duty. That way we have a large enough ratio to ensure we've got full coverage throughout the whole city. Recently, Highway Patrol Division ran an operation that focused on ensuring vehicles were roadworthy and compliant with legislative requirements. That operation resulted in 12 vehicle impounds, as well as 8 defect notices, with 3 of those defects being issued on the first night of the operation. Furthermore, countless penalty infringement notices were also issued for people with expired registrations and expired licenses. We're currently working with the state government to install some new traffic speed cameras in the Mount Thomas region. Hotspots that we are reviewing for increased number of vehicle crashes and pedestrian injuries are the Route 68 and Panorama Drive area. If everything goes according to plan, we will have speed cameras set up in those areas within the coming weeks. Recently, our Critical Incident Response Team and our Special Operations Group, CERT and SOG, were involved in an Australian Federal Police investigation that resulted in a large seizure of drugs, as well as apprehension of individuals possessing military-style weapons. So as you can see, Victoria Police has been working hard to protect the general public through prevention, investigation, and response. And it's imperative that we work with our local communities to achieve a reduction in serious crime. This is where the public comes in. The public is essential to what we do. They are the focus of our prevention, but also present us with large amounts of information that assists us in our investigation and within our operations. Not only do we commend each and every one of you, but we ask that you continue to assist us in keeping you and your families safe from harm. I will now hand over to Robert Muldoon, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and after that, we will open to the press briefly for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector. Just confirming, can I be heard? People can hear me, yes?
Yep. Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
okay.
Sir, yes, sir.
Fantastic. All right, I'd just like to give a big thank you to everybody in attendance today, from the media reps to community leaders and police staff. The statistics outlined today by the Inspector are staggering. From a prosecution perspective, the fact that there are only 92 firearm prohibition orders, yet the number of shootings in 1 week would vastly exceed that number, is extremely concerning. The former Director of Public Prosecutions, my predecessor, took a hardline stance against the revocation of firearm prohibition orders, and since then there have been major overhauls in the revocation process. This has definitely resulted in fewer offenders having their firearm prohibition order revoked, as they pose an ongoing risk to public safety. However, it would seem that gun violence in the state of Victoria remains out of hand and completely excessive. It's because of this excessive violence that we see an announcement recently that Ambulance Victoria have deemed areas of our great state to be no-go zones. It's extremely concerning for me when I see that kind of public announcement. And through further investigation and discussion, I've learnt that it is because emergency services are being targeted by gun violence and criminal offending. This morning, Inspector Silver and I met to discuss the current situation. The Office of Public Prosecutions regularly assists Victoria Police in interpreting legislation and providing advice around prosecutions and charges. At our meeting, the discussion was had about limiting gun violence with the ultimate goal of eliminating it. For far too long now, our emergency services people and the community have had to put up with being shot, stabbed, or kidnapped without any regard for them and without justification. In my own opinion, there's absolutely no lawful excuse for shooting an on-duty emergency service worker. The behaviour is not justified and, to be frank, will not be tolerated by me or my office with regard to prosecution. My advice today to the police and the inspector was that a firearm prohibition order will work to effectively eliminate an offender's ability to purchase firearms for criminal activity, and thus this results in a minimisation of firearm crime. The act of attempting to murder another individual, let alone a member of our emergency services, is so utterly serious and disturbing that the result of such behaviour must be met with swift and harsh penalties. Community safety must always be at the forefront of our minds. With that, the Office of Public Prosecutions has advised that all instances of violence towards police or other emergency services personnel with a firearm result in a firearm prohibition order. This means all instances of violence with an automatic firearm, shotgun with 7 or more shots, or illegal modification to a weapon such as a silencer result in the imposition of a firearm prohibition order. All instances of mass casualty with a firearm result in the imposition of a firearm prohibition order. This advice will remain our official advice until such time that statistics show the extreme gun violence in this state is at a minimum limited or eliminated entirely. We currently have a functioning court system in place that can deal with the revocation of firearm prohibition orders, and the focus of that system is first and foremost public safety. You must, as a citizen wishing to wield a firearm, present with a lawful reason for possessing a firearm in our great state. And if you have committed an act that results in a firearm prohibition order, you have been deemed by police to pose a significant risk to the public. After such an order is made, a thorough and objective assessment of your suitability to possess a firearm must occur. A firearm prohibition order does not relate to melee weapons such as bats or knives. Thus, if your work relies on you possessing a knife, a fire extinguisher, or anything of the sort, that should not affect your employment. However, should your employment require you possess weapons or projectiles and you find yourself with a firearm prohibition order, your career will be adversely affected. I do not provide advice such as this without serious consideration. However, the state of our firearm crime can only be described as frightening. We're at a point where it's becoming unsafe for our children to leave their homes, walk to school, or visit the park. This level of fear in our communities is intolerable, and action must be taken to reduce this harm. My office will continue to monitor the situation with Victoria Police, and at a time where this hardline stance is no longer necessary, we will conduct a further review and provide further advice on the relaxation of these changes. Once again, I thank you all for coming and being present today. We'll now open the floor to questions from the media.